Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Karen Clark. I'm Superintendent of Alachua County Public Schools, and I am really excited to be here tonight. Really excited because this is the first of multiple meetings that will be had over the next 12 or more years to revitalize our schools. And Howard Bishop is one of our first major projects. So congratulations to the Howard Bishop family. There's a lot of staff members over here. And so the next few years are going to be very exciting for the Hawks, hectic, crazy at times, but exciting. And so we're very excited for them. As you know, the voters approved our half-cent sales tax initiative over the next 12 years, and the goal of that is to revitalize our classroom spaces, to bring us up to that 21st century learning environment that we want for all of our children. Bishop is one of the first and biggest projects on our list, and Metcalf is following right behind that. So we're taking on two schools at almost the same time, and there's actually going to be a few more on top of that, but these are going to be our first two. So in just a few minutes, Mr. Paul White, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, is going to give you a quick rundown of what's planned, some timelines, what's already happened for Bishop and where we're moving. And I know that you're as anxious as I am to see the wrecking ball come in and dirt moving. I cannot wait for that moment. But there's a lot of stuff that has to go on behind the scenes first. That's the boring part. That's not the fun part. But that's the most important part because we've got to get it right before we can start building things. So Paul's going to share the timeline with you for getting that done. And then he's going to be turning over the microphone to the architect this evening, Mr. Paul Stressing. Paul, give a wave. Of Paul Stressing Associates. And this is his firm that's going to be doing the redesign of Howard Bishop. So he is here this evening. And he's the one that's going to be getting the input on what you'd like to see here at Bishop once that project is finished. Also, I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce you to Betsy Waite from the city of Gainesville. She's with the Wild Spaces Public Places Initiative. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a countywide project to revitalize our public spaces, our recreational facilities, our parks, things of that sort. Now, I've been told that they're looking to spend about $250,000 here in the Howard Bishop area. And so part of that, they're looking to possibly renovate the track here at Howard Bishop, make some other improvements on campus so it can be used by the local neighborhood, after school, on the weekends, things of that sort. So she's also going to be here listening to some of your input, because some of your input may not necessarily be part of the interior construction. It might actually fall into more of a wild spaces public places. And we're looking forward to that partnership and being able to leverage our resources to bring forth a really, really great school for our children. And so at the end of the meeting, we'll take a few minutes also to let you know how you can keep up with the progress here at Bishop and all of our schools, and how you can share additional input. If you get home tonight and think about something, there'll be an avenue for you to submit input at a later date. So now, without further ado, I'm going to ask Mr. Paul White to come up and take over.
Good evening. I am really pleased to be here, and I need to provide some context. June 18th, 2018, we had a meeting at Spring Hill Church. And we had that meeting because even though there had been lots of meetings at the various schools, some concerns were raised about the timing, how the money was going to be spent for the sales tax, particularly for schools on the eastern side of the county. And so we talked and we met for about 3 hours. There were 160 people there, and we talked about the fact that we could make existing schools look like new. And we had to say that because when we went through the process to locate a site, we could not find a 25-acre site on the eastern side of the county to build. But we had consensus from all 160 folks that that's what they wanted to see. So about 14 months later, here we are, doing exactly what we said. And I said at that meeting, what we needed to do was get behind, it seems like a long time ago, but it was only a year, our new superintendent, and we can make this happen. So I'm very pleased. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. We'll talk about some of those things at the at the end of the meeting on how you and everyone else can keep up. We have an Oversight Committee that's going to be watching how we spend the money to make sure we're spending it consistent with what we want to do. So Paul's going to talk about some of this, but we needed approval from the state to be able to take down some buildings. We had a preliminary analysis on that. We're confident that that's going to happen. There'll need to be some decisions made in terms of how we proceed. And by that I mean you can do a school in phases, or if we're able to separate out and, my word, build a portable farm and move all the kids there and make the school a construction site without any kids, we can go much faster. Those decisions have not been made. That's part of the discussion that'll need to go on. So what you see here on the board are just possibilities. The purpose of this meeting is to get your input on what you would like to see. But in his presentation, Paul's stressing who's local, who's done a lot of work with us in the past, and we feel very confident in his abilities. I will tell you, I told every architect at the end of the day what we needed was wow when somebody walks in the school. So there's no pressure here, Paul, okay? But we need you to deliver on that.
He did say, I want the wow factor.
That's right, that's right. So ideally, we're looking at 2021 for a completion date. As Karen indicated, we'll be having lots of conversations about how things progress. But at the end of the day, we're selecting the contractor next week, right? To work on that. And so we're ramped up, we're ready to go, and we're excited. So I'm going to turn this over to Paul now. He's going to be seeking your input. Now, we have boards up here. We have stickies. If anybody's concerned about standing up and talking, you can just put your notation down and stick it up on the board. We'll take pictures of that. We'll put a report out on all the comments so people can see that we heard it, and we're here to really listen to you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Stresser. Paul.
Thank you all for being here. I'm just going to kind of segue into what Mr. White was saying. This process is a unique process, and to start off with, I'd first like to commend the superintendent for gathering everybody together. I work with a lot of different school districts doing a lot of different projects, and it's not very often where you have the superintendent saying, we want input from everybody. A lot of times it's administrative meetings, and we sit down and say, this is what we want, and we go with that. So with that, I love the opportunity to have feedback. As Mr. White had mentioned, what tonight's about is we're not here to present any preconceived ideas. We don't know. However, during the shortlisting and selection of this process, a great deal of time and effort went into reviewing existing drawings, reviewing site conditions. I did not do the Castaldi on this. Danny Kale did, another local architect, but I did the Castaldi on Metcalf and Idlewild. And just real quick, I want to talk about Castaldi because some people have heard about this Castaldi. What is a Castaldi? This is the Castaldi report right here, and what it is because the buildings have been built using state funds, you can't just tear a building down. It needs to be justified. So what happens is a team comes in of structural engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, plumbing engineers, civil engineers, and architects, and they do a complete assessment. And with that assessment, there's mathematical formulas. I don't know Mr. Castaldi, but I know he came up with these formulas. And what the formula does is it evaluates new construction compared to the cost of renovation. And if renovation exceeds half the cost of new construction, it's justifiable to remove that building. It doesn't say you have to remove the building. It says it's justifiable. Reason being is the state doesn't want to see a lot of money going into something that just has old infrastructure and things of that nature. So that's what the custody does. It basically does, it's a mathematical formula of evaluation, and then from that, the older the buildings, the easier it is to custody out because of the nature of the construction. A cast iron piping deteriorating, infrastructure, things of that nature. So if you hear the words, and I'm sure you probably have, the custody, and why isn't any work going on to this point? Because the actual a half-cent sales tax initiative passed quite a little while ago, but there's a lot of effort that goes into really initiating the funds, which I think wasn't until probably March, I think. And then from that was when all the engineers could be involved and started that. So over the last couple months, all the buildings, Metcalf, Idlewild, and Howard Bishop, have been custodied out. Idlewild and Metcalf have been approved. We're going up Monday to meet with Tallahassee to walk them through the Howard Bishop and help expedite the process. And with that, that's going to confirm what DOE will allow us to do. A lot of times, people don't realize you just can't say, I want to build this. I want 5 classrooms and I want them this size. When you're working with the Department of Education and using state funds, they have guidelines as far as square footages and the appropriateness of spaces, what support spaces are used to complement other spaces. They'll give you a 5 to 10% leeway that you can shift, and the reason it's 5 to 10% is a lot of times it deals with construction components and things of that nature that come in modular sizes. And so during this whole process, DOE reviews the custody, they come back and say, you can go ahead and take down 32 classrooms. We can justify that with the classrooms. They come with 3 classrooms, come with a resource room, come with skills development. So that's how all the numbers kind of go together. So with that, it's important to understand that there's a formula that we put these things together to come up with an ultimate footprint, but then the design of that then is designed and modified to reflect the site conditions. In this particular case, everybody's very familiar with with the school, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly walk through the campus, some ideas, but as Mr. White had mentioned, what tonight is about is for you all to, any ideas, any concerns you might have with historical significance, with safety issues, with design issues, things of that nature, what we would like to do, and we realize a lot of people don't feel comfortable public speaking, me for one, but with that, what we've done is we've got little sticky pads. When we get finished, we would encourage you to put ideas down, and I believe this is one of a number of meetings. This is the first meeting, so again, we're not here to present any strong ideas, but we're here to talk about concepts and our understanding of the campus. So when we get finished, we encourage you to mill around. There'll be a number of us here. Monique from CHW. Monique, will you raise your hand? Monique's our civil engineer, local civil engineer. She's working with us on the site civil on this, which is very important. This is a very unique project, a number of site civil things that we'll have to deal with, as well as utilities. So she'll be here, Suzanne will be here. We'll all be around here answering questions. So again, when we get finished, please take some time and jot down ideas. And I think, Suzanne, you also have some cards that if anybody wants us to contact them or something, please fill that out as well. So that being said, we've kind of gone through what a custody is, went through a long, drawn-out process of selecting the best architect for this project. And just real quick, I've worked with the district numerous times. I did Oakview, I did Kanapaha, I've done a lot of different renovations. A lot of the schools have got classroom additions and things, so I've got a long history with the district, and more importantly, I'm local, and that's very important because being local allows me to have fast reactions. We can set up fast meetings if we need to critique anything and things of that nature, and if Mike needs anything, I'm just a phone call away, and so I think that was one of the reasons which kind of gave me a little bit of, advantage to some of the other firms, but other than that, I appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to working with you all. And again, this is the first process of many of extracting information from you all. So real briefly, and I'm gonna walk, and you'll see these are the boards right here at the end. If you walk around, if there's a topic that stimulates your curiosity or you have a comment on, just jot down a note, even if it's keywords or something, and we encourage that. But real quick, I'm going to go through the boards and kind of show the process. And Paul kind of talked about it a little bit. I'm going to try to make a little more sense out of it. But please, I'm not here tonight presenting a design. We haven't even gotten that far. But in my experience, I have found that it's a lot easier to use my expertise to come up with design concepts and present them to get a reaction from you. Whether that reaction's good or bad, it's to get a reaction. Better than sitting with a blank piece of paper saying, what do you all want? And so that's what tonight's all about. So I think I'm gonna convey a couple interesting options that we're gonna consider, and a lot of them are driven by utilities and things of that nature. So while you're walking around looking at the boards, the first board here, this is an overall site plan. This is if you're flying over, looking down on the campus, the configuration of the campus and the buildings. They're also the ages of the buildings. One of the things we looked at as we were walking around the campus, and let me just say, I love the campus. The trees are incredible. You have some absolute incredible trees here. One of the things we tried to do in both of these conceptual designs I'm presenting tonight is both Monique and myself looked at placing those trees and working the buildings around those. We think that's very important rather than just coming in and leveling them. There's some great opportunities, not only with shade, but that was the first thing I told Mike walking through. I said, there's just, you know, there's all the sprawl, but you still have that sense of neighborhood here. And, you know, and that's a really important character to, you know, capture and retain, and we don't want to lose that. But there are some opportunities with some of the erosion and grade changing that we can do some enhancement on that, especially working around the trees. And I'm going to go through those right now and kind of show you. From this, what we did was we looked at, just real quick looking at this, this is the main admin building. That's going to remain. The gymnasium building is unique. DOE says we can do modernization of that, but it didn't warrant taking it down. So what we'll do is there's some opportunities to do some modernization. The music building up here, it warranted taking down. Basically, the buildings in peach, DOE is saying we can take those down. They've served the community well, and it's time to put them away. Unless you want to spend a lot of money on maintenance and things of that nature, and I think there's a reason why we do the custodian, is saying not a wise move. The other thing it does too is campus security. Campus security on this, Mike, I don't know how you do it, but you've got a can of worms here. And you know, not only that, but because of the sports fields and things of that nature in here. So one of the things that I looked at immediately was, how can we eliminate all the nooks and crannies and hiding places? How can we do layering with safety and safety concerns? You want to create distance. Distance and time is your best friend. It gives you time to react. Now, we got certain things we need to deal with close proximities, but you have a number of natural components here which work out really nice. You've got the drainage along the north, which to get through that, you've got some awful lot of maneuvering through that. So, you know, you've got a couple natural things in here which work well. But anyway, looking at that, we looked at how can we improve the security. Now, what I did was I said, knowing those things and specializing in schools, looking at what other districts are doing, I said the first and obvious thing is, what if we went 2 stories? What if we went 3 stories? So we started looking at multi-stories. I'm not a big fan of 3 stories. 2 stories is you know, very commonly done. But in doing that, that's what this layout does here. This basically eliminates all the separate buildings, do a 2-story building, and then what it does is it completely opens up the center court. That way you can secure off everything, and from the admin building, you got visibility to all the buildings. And then take the cafeteria area, since the service drive is already established here, do some improvements so that we don't alter that, and then redo the cafeteria. With your cafeteria, with a stage, it becomes a cafetorium. That's the difference between a cafeteria and cafetorium, is one's got a stage, one doesn't. With that, typically what we'll do is we'll take, since you have a stage area, which is for performances, we always like to take band and choral and attach it to that component. because what that allows you to do is doing performances. You don't have people coming up from the front and getting up and on the stage area. You can actually stage things in the actual band and choral room and come up from the back and ramp up through the back. So in this particular design, what you'll see is the dining room, the kitchen, stage area, a choral and band room here. Now, let me just say this. The choral and band room, the building was fine. It didn't custody out. It was a candidate for modernization. So when you modernize, that doesn't mean you can't repurpose a building. So one of the things in this design, this is saying, you know what? Right now, your music and choral is here. This building there's some structural issues with it that it'd be too costly to improve, so it makes sense to take down. This is your other music building. Rather than being music, why not repurpose it? In repurposing, what that would do is that will allow you to modernize that building into something else, and then you could take, in this particular design, we took the music and brought it down to this area, so the music and band backs up to the stage. So not only during performances, during practices, your band and your choral director could actually come into the cafeteria when it's not being used and actually use this space as a practice hall. So there's a lot of nice benefit to that. I'm not saying you should do that, but that's certainly an option.
When would we, if we have questions or input, do we just raise our hand or do we wait till the...
You can, either, however you'd like to do it.
Only because I'm the band director. The only concern...
You're not allowed to talk, I'm sorry.
Too bad. One of my concerns would be in that is right now, the size of our program and the amount of families that come to our performances, obviously this facility is not big. I couldn't even fit half of my band on that stage. So if that's going to happen, what capacity is the new cafeteria going to hold, like the space, and is the stage in there going to be big enough to actually hold performances here? Because if not, then it may not get as much use as you're describing.
Understood. Couple different responses. First of all, typically a stage area, if you keep under 1,000 square feet, it eliminates a lot of safety issues, smoke hatches, everything that you see in a regular performing arts center. But that doesn't mean you can't take the area where the curtain is and behind it, keep that under 1,000 square feet. Then you bring the front out on an apron and capture that much more space. So we have the ability to make that stage larger to accommodate any of your needs. The actual cafetorium itself, what you'll do is we would combine the multi-purpose space and cafeteria. If you just do a cafeteria like this, the actual space would be a little bit larger than this, not much larger than this. But DOE also recognizes that you're entitled to a multi-purpose space. And so what we did here is we combined the cafeteria and multi-purpose space. The space you're looking at is about 3.5 times the size of this, to give you an idea.
Okay, that might just do it.
But part of that is being creative with what Tallahassee, what DOE will allow you to do, being careful how to use it. They give you the list of spaces. And you need to have those spaces. You need to account for those square footages. It doesn't mean you need a separate storage room. You can take that storage room, put it into the classroom, grow your classroom, and pick up your storage in your cabinetry. So there's a lot of little things like that that we'll be working with you on to try to get the best utilization of the space and the funds.
We'll be doing stakeholder meetings.
Yeah, and as Suzanne mentioned, that's what these stakeholder meetings will be doing. And we're almost taking baby steps. This first meeting is to get information from you. We're going to digest it, clean things up. The next meeting, we're going to then start getting into the buildings and individual buildings. And the stakeholder meetings, we will have meetings on the band room, the choral room, all these spaces. So that's what the superintendent has informed me we will be doing and be prepared to do that. And that's why I say I compliment her for that, because a lot of districts do not do that.
Thank you.
On the other end of that spectrum, where you have the band room now, you're saying you can put technology there. How do you vision that? How many classrooms do you think you can fit in that building, and how large?
Well, and again, the Department of Education has what I call the Bible. And in a stakeholder meeting, we will sit down and I will share that with you and we'll say, okay, Department of Education says we can get 30 students in here. Each student is 30 square feet, whatever that is. The math's easy. And at that point, then it's a matter of configuration. So what we'll do on that right now, they do recognize technology, and we're going to do a couple things. One is we would like to, in this option, what we did was we took the band room, we gutted it, reconfigured the interior for a large technology area, but also inside the building itself, we've got a series of skill development classes that will also be technology oriented. So again, you get in that, do you do one big space or do you break it up into segments? Do you grade appropriate technology classes and things of that nature? So those are the things. We're not here tonight to tell you, well, we've got, this is it and it's 4,000 square feet. We haven't gotten that far yet. What we're doing is just kind of talking concepts, but your question is a good question and we will be answering that in the future. Is that okay? Okay. I'm not trying to dodge it, but I just don't have an answer for you. We will have Department of Education will give us a whole guideline of the spaces we can have, how big they can have, how big they can be. But again, like I mentioned, we can take those spaces and we can be creative and blend spaces together if working with the school and all the user groups, if that's appropriate. The one thing we don't want to do is we want to be careful. We want to go ahead and be able to have spaces that reflect technology, but we want to be careful not to design something that's appropriate for one group of people, and then in 3 years there's a change, and then you've got the space that you're revamping. So what I like to do, what I'm proud of the experience that I've got in school design is designing those multi-purpose spaces that administration can move in a quick pinch. Let's say you have an influx of fifth graders one year, and then the next year sixth graders are, and being able to go ahead and do adjustments of that. So having some of those spaces and locating them in the appropriate areas will be key, and that's one of the things we're going to explore. Now, that's just this layout here. On this layout here, what we've got is we've got the two-story are classrooms, resource rooms, skills development. Then you've got your cafeteria area, and then this is your technology and science areas right here in this area. And again, some of those spaces are multi-purpose type spaces. Now, we looked at that and we said, okay, this kind of keeps the dynamics of the delivery in this area and everything similar to what it is now. We said, well, what if we did this? What if we kind of flip-flop some things around? Sometimes you look at something enough time where you think that's the only option, and we said, well, no, maybe not. And we said, well, what if we did this? What if we, and again, this is crude sketch, but again, it's, I had the time to refine that one. Sometimes the danger in presenting ideas is the more refined the drawing is, the more people think, well, they've already designed the darn thing. Why are you even here? The other day, that was like this, but I tried to do some refinement on it, but I did want to show you the difference so that you realize this is, I mean, these are moving targets right now. What we do know is this. The admin building, built in 1992, that's going to be authorized for modernization, media center, and these buildings across the back. Gymnasium is also an interesting building because you've got a relationship with GRU on there with all the solar panels, with the solar farm. In this particular layout, what we did is we said, well, what if we took the cafeteria, moved the cafeteria up here? This building then could stay music if we wanted it to, and just do. This is just conceptual, just conceptual. Go ahead and modernize that, and then go ahead and bring the kitchen in here. You've got your bus drive in here. You can bring your service drive back in here, and basically the black dots in here. These are all the major trees, and as you can see, as we're sketching this, those trees. We are moving buildings around those trees. We only want to take down unhealthy trees and trees that have become a problem, and there might be some pruning, taking out some unhealthy components of them and things of that nature. So we're trying our hardest to move some things around. But on this particular one, what we did was we basically basically put the cafeteria up here. We took this area, we did 2 smaller 2-story buildings here. And then with this, what it allowed us to do, it allowed us to bring in some additional parking in here, but more importantly, it brings in a stacking area to get the cars off the street. That's what this does, and then this pretty much stays the same. And then in the center, what we would do is we would do some enhancements in the center. You've got that great amphitheater out there. Why not do some kind of coverage out there and make this an area where the kids want to be? The beauty of this one, what I like about this one is from an administration standpoint, the visibility down here really works well. And from a security standpoint, there's each one has some advantages and disadvantages, but this is just a different approach on it. But what I wanted to show you is that we're not tied to anything. We want to try to show you that there's some really interesting options here, and at the end, if there's some advantages, disadvantage, put them on the board and let us know. Now, with this is just the conceptual. What we did was when we did the actual design, we had the list from the Department of Education of all the recommended spaces, and we actually designed these spaces, which is what is on that board over there. And so that'll give you a general idea. And if you want to come up and look at that, I try to put different colors on it so that you can so that things pop and you can see the corridors and the actual space names. So that's a general idea. By going with 2 buildings, you're dealing with 2 elevators, more stairs. Going with 1 building, you got 1 elevator. So there's advantages and disadvantages and cost advantage to each one. And those are some of the things, once we shake this out, that we're going to get into this. And the school board's in the process, the facilities department's in the process of going through the selection process now for the construction managers. Once they come aboard, then they can take some of my numbers and really fine tune them. Contractors have their thumb on the pulse of the daily manipulation of construction numbers. Architects and engineers, we do kind of monthly averages, and so the numbers we're dealing with now are averages, and then once we get to see them aboard, they're going to really fine-tune things and allow us to shift wherever we need to. Now, there's a couple of different questions as you're walking around looking. There's a question about the schedule and how the dynamics of all this will work. The dynamics are those are head scratchers, but there's some different opportunities, some good opportunity. Everything has some good and bad. And as Paul had mentioned, one of the ideas was, do we occupy the site, or do we vacate for a short period of time, 1 school year, and then come back to a new school? Advantages and disadvantages. Nobody has made up any decisions. However, I was tasked with putting numbers together for each of those options, and the most economical, and again, this is strictly economical and safety, is to vacate the site. And I think a contractor would certainly advise that. That's not to say we would do it, but that's one option. The reason being is, what it will do is, by vacating the site, it gives the contractor the whole site. And he can go in there and start removing utilities at the source. Not trying to, over the years, there's a lot of buildings that have been built here, and there's a lot of utilities that nobody has a clue where they're connected, what they're going to, and by occupying a site, you're looking at constant interruptions. And so one option was, let me start with the first option was staying on the site and subdividing the campus. Divide it in half, work on this side first, get this done, and then go ahead and do this side. What that will do is, this would be year 1, this would be year 2. Then with the public places, wild spaces, they couldn't get started until this was done, and this will be another 4 months. So you're looking at 2.5 years if you occupy the site. Now, advantages of that is, it keeps the kids on site. The disadvantages, you've got potential interruption on a regular basis of utilities. You've got testing requirements where you're going to have to ask the contractor not to work because of testing. And more importantly, you went from 1-year general conditions. General conditions are what a contractor charges you to do the construction and pay all of his overhead and everything. And you're looking at, I don't know, Mike, you're here, what, $60,000 a month? Let's, $70,000 a month over another year and a half, you can see we're talking millions of dollars, or $1 million+ if you stretch it out, and that's occupying the site. That's a hard nut to swallow, and that's something that the facilities needs to digest and try to figure out, is that, can we justify that? Now, that's if you cut the site in half and you occupy it. Again, you got interruptions. We don't know where half the utilities are here and things of that nature. So that, from a design professional standpoint, I don't think I'd certainly place that as the least preferred option. There are two other options, and that is here. Oops. Here, we're looking at, what we did was we took the site plan, and again, when we get finished, walk around and kind of mill around and look, what these two boards are here, what we looked at doing is how can we go ahead and bring a portable farm in here to accommodate all the classrooms. And this would work. And then with that, what we would do is we could still utilize the gymnasium. We could fence this off. There would be some utility issues that we'd have to coordinate. But the problem, one of the issues that we were struggling with is, while this is going on, Metcalf is going on as well. Metcalf's an easy school to renovate because you could put a fence right there. Everything to the east of that is remaining. Everything right in here is going to be removed. Now, that being said, you've got a drainage ditch going across, a deep drainage ditch, which you're not able to cross over without major coordination with DOT, and that's going to be extremely hard to get, which means the entrance will be off of 12th. So you're going to be coming into the site directly on the same road that construction is going to be using. The construction site's going to be coming right in here. So that's one of the concerns that we're toying with. So again, on the surface, it's like, hey, why don't we just do a portable farm right here and everything? But then you start looking at all the other dynamics, and it complicates things. But this is one option. What we would do here is we would bring in, I think it was 50 portables, and then none of them would have bathrooms. But what we would do is we would strategically locate bathroom units. Department of Education says every student needs to have a bathroom within 200 feet, and teachers are within 500 feet. So we would be in compliance with Department of Education, but it brings in a new dynamic. So that's why I say with that, on the surface, the portables sound good, but then you need to look at the dynamics of it in the daily operations of how that's going to affect you. Now, so that's what this option is. Down here, this option is what if we divided the campus in half and only did part of the portables, but you still have the same dynamics. You might occupy some of these classrooms here, but you still have to come in off of 12th. So 12th is one of those ugly components that brings in a safety concern with us, and so. But again, I'm not here to present how this is going to be done. Nobody knows. What we did a cost associated with each one of these, and it's being digested now. And those are some of the items that the facilities department and the board and the superintendent have a really hard choice, because there's really no good answer. One of the questions that I throw out there is do you want to do it fast and get in and get out and get in a new school, or do you want to occupy the site and extend it to 2.5 years? Yes, sir.
If we decided to do it fast, brainstorm where we would go.
I think that's a discussion that that would certainly take place. Don't know.
No decision has been made, but there must be some thought.
Well,
I can't think of it.
Well, what the Department of Education would do is, and the Department of Education has a tally of what schools have what students, how many vacant student stations, and we would be working with them, and they would say, look, you've got such and such a school and you've got 250 student stations open. We would recommend doing that and bringing partial portables into that. So again, I don't think anybody's prepared tonight to even suggest the option, but I know this: throughout the district, there's a number of schools that are not full capacity, and it will certainly take some planning. So what you would save construction-wise, you're going to probably spend a little bit administrative-wise trying to shake all this out. There's no easy silver bullet. And it's as simple as that. However, if those are concerns of you, of yours, as you can see with some of these comments here, go ahead and put them on there. Those are the comments that we need to allow us to better adjust that. If you're concerned about, hey, we really, you know what? If it's going to happen, let's do it quick and let's get back into the new school. And if that's a concern, put that comment up there. If there's some people who say, I just, I really want to stay on the site, that's a valid comment as well. Put that up there, and those are the things that we'll be digesting. Wouldn't be bad, even though you're kind of your own entity here. We should probably engage the city as well. Just to
with her.
Yeah.
We work together for the CRA, so Susanna and I are
You're going to have a complete modernized
and the kids like
system.
to push the button.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have something to share that you did not get to share tonight, or you think of something at 2 o'clock this morning that you didn't put a Post-it note on the board for, there are 2 email addresses. One is for Mr. Richard Rucker. He is the project coordinator for Howard Bishop's redesign. So you'll see his email address. And then if you've got any feedback or questions about the public space, if you're interested in the track or swing sets or parks or soccer fields or any of that good stuff, Betsy Waite is where you would send that feedback as part of this partnership. So we're very excited about that. So with that, we would like to thank you all so much for coming out tonight for our first meeting. We're excited about things to come for the Howard Bishop Hawks. Thanks again to Principal Gamble and his staff. Thank you all so much for hosting and for your hospitality this evening. Thanks. You all have a great night.